By 2050, it will be too late. The Prime Minister has been dragged kicking and screaming to say something about the climate crisis. And so he says we're potentially going to have net zero emissions by 2050. By 2050, it will be too late. 2050 targets are very attractive for do-nothing governments, oppositions and businesses that don't want to lift a finger in this, the critical decade. The decade that scientists have said is our last chance for us humans not to lose control of a spiralling, reinforcing breakdown of our climate system. If we don't succeed by 2030, then by 2050, the domino-like collapse of our planet's natural processes will be unstoppable. It will affect our farms, our oceans, our forests, our cities and our suburbs. It's what we do by 2030 that matters. Net zero by 2050 blows our carbon budget. It is code for someone else's problem. There will be no aspect of life left untouched, and nothing we will be able to do will be able to stop the damage if we don't clean up our act by 2030. The new US President understands the urgency and the seriousness of the problem that neither the Liberals or Nationals or even, sadly, Labor have quite grasped. 100% renewable electricity by 2035 and $2 trillion on job-creating clean energy infrastructure. And within the first few days of his presidency, Mr Biden has yanked away permits for massive oil and gas pipelines, withdrawn exploration permits, rejoined the Paris Agreement and committed to an all-electric fleet of homemade vehicles for the government's use. He did more in 2 days to create jobs and protect the climate than the Australian government has done in its entire 7 years. The coal, oil and gas industry there has been left stunned. To quote one oil executive, the industry is aghast at these changes. They are more direct, more fierce and quicker than what folks expected. But, Mr Speaker, that is how you start to act when you truly deeply realise that we only have a handful of years to stop a runaway climate breakdown. It is simple maths. There's only a certain amount of carbon left that we can burn before we go over these tipping points. And here at home, the Independent Climate Targets Panel updated Australia's obligations based on the new global carbon budget. The government has to double its 2030 target for a 2-degree world to 50% and triple it for a safer 1.5-degree one. That is the pathway for net zero by 2045 for 2 degrees and net zero by 2035 for a 1.5-degree world. That is what a science-based target looks like. So if the Prime Minister ever gets a call from the new United States President, and if he invites us to the Climate Summit in April, which we shouldn't be confident about given the UK and France barred us from speaking at the UN conference last year, what is the Prime Minister going to do? He can't take his gas-fired recovery there because US climate envoy John Kerry explicitly said gas is not a bridging fuel and warned against new gas projects. And I quote, "When we haven't really exhausted the other possibilities, we're going to be stuck with stranded assets in 10, 20, 30 years." The only thing that this government can do to not remain isolated on the global stage with other petro-states like Russia and Saudi Arabia is to commit to 2030 science-based targets and have a fully costed plan to get us there, just like the Greens have.